Hello, welcome back to 3D Drawing for Your Model Railway. I'm going to continue working on the DTS 62 today. Today I'm going to be looking at doing the handrails. Now, as I said before, they're going to be quite delicate and fragile. I'm not entirely sure how well they're going to print. I'm not entirely sure yet what orientation I'm going to print the chassis in. If I can do it with the bogies down, then the handrails might print okay. But if I have to do it the other way up, then the handrails will become an issue, especially when it comes to the supports, and then they're just breaking it, which would end up being a mess. The issue with doing them with the chassis down is anything that's on the bottom would print poorly, which is part of the reason why I've drawn all of this lot completely separate. And you can see that if I get rid of everything other than the chassis, you can see how underneath the only thing we've got really are the lights, these tanks, and the two bogie bolsters. Now, I'm quite happy to separate all of these tanks off and have these as separate bodies that can then just be glued in. Same with the bogie bolsters, I could do the same with those. I really though don't want to take the lights off, I'd rather keep them on. It will mean that you potentially lose a little bit of detail in there, but I think it'd still work okay. The reason I don't want to take the bolsters off, sorry, I don't want to leave the bolsters on, is when you print these, you want them to be nice and clean, so that you get a nice pivot on there. Whereas if you start having supports on there, it'll start rubbing and stuff. So you can separate these off. Potentially, we could just put a little tiny hole in the bottom here, so you can use that to line up with. But the tanks, again, they're not going to be a massive issue because, as I said, they're flat on the bottom, so gluing them on would be quite straightforward. So yeah, as I say, you can see where I'm going with that and why I'm thinking the way I am. It's just to get that print quality. So let's just bring some of these parts back in, and then we can use those for lining up the handrails and stuff that we're going to be working on today. So primarily we're just going to need the chassis, two cabs, and the roof line, I think. Okay, so what I've got here is Paul's plan here has a diagram of all the handrails and the upright beams that go up to the roof. They're all measurements in inches. You can see you've got 3-inch width beam there, and then you can see the distance. Hasn't got the measurement on this side, I don't think, but there is a gap between the end of the cab and the first handrail coming down there. The handrails for the steps area is a completely different ball game because they come outwards and down, whereas these ones just all go across, so they should be nice and easy to do these today. So I'm going to start on the engine ends. I'm going to just leave the engine on so you can see where I'm working. I'm going to start by creating a new component, and this component is going to be called handrails. Once you've got the component, make sure your radio button is turned on and checked, and then we can start working on these handrails. So if we start, it's the same both sides, they're exactly the same both sides, they mirror over. So the first rail we're going to look at is this upright that goes up here. Paul's measurement on these says that they're 3 inches, and then sorry, they're pretty square, so 3 inches in N gauge, we're looking at approximately 0.5 millimeter, which is really fine and really delicate. So I'm just going to beef those up a little bit. I'm probably going to go for about 0.8 millimeters, I think. That'll just be slightly overscale, but it'll be a bit stronger. So the position of this first one, I'm going to create it on the bottom of the chassis here. I'm just going to turn the roof off a second so we can see where we're drawing. So we're going to use a rectangle. I'm going to snap it to the side, and I'm going to, as I say, 0.8 by 0.8. Distance from the end here. Now, on the picture, you can see there is a gap there, and the diagram, you can see that he's drawn it, but he hasn't measured that I can see clearly the distance between the ends. So I'm not going to be too overly concerned. I'm just going to go from there. Actually, let's project that point, which is the corner of the cab there, and we dimension from those 2 points. I'm just going to go for 1 millimeter on mine. And then I'm going to extrude that one upwards, and we need the roof line, the roof panel. So I'm going to extrude it up to the roof, and you can see it's already creating it as a new body. Click on OK on that. So now we need to do a little bit of maths. We've got a 9.5 inch gap from the edge of that upright to the steps, and then 18 inch for the steps, and then 3.5 inch gap from the steps to the first handrail. So that's 13, 21, 31 inches. So if we stick 31 inches into there, so 787.4 is going to be to the first of the railings. So I'm going to create a sketch on this floor, turn the roof off, and I'm going to just draw a point that I can use as a reference. I'll snap it to the side, dimension the point to project that corner there. Okay, let's try dimension again, so that point to there. So we said that it's 787.4. So 787.4 divided by 148, and that puts us in the correct place for the next point. And that point will stay there. I'm going to use that for the upright of the railing. Okay, so to now start on the rail, I'm going to create an offset plane from this front edge, and I'm just going to drag that offset plane in slightly, maybe minus 0. I'm going to go for 0.5 millimeters. That might be too far. I'm just thinking about the distance with this plate that we put here. So 0.4 millimeters I'm going to go for. So we've now got that plane that we can draw the railings themselves on. So I'm going to create a sketch using that plane. Catch up, just lagged a little bit here. Okay, so now I'm going to project that point onto this sketch. Now if we come back to here, we can see the railing height, total height is 40 inches. So back in here, 40 inches is 1016 millimeters. So if I now draw a line from that point upwards, define the length of that line as 1016 divided by 148. So that's the height of our railings. Now if we look at the pictures, those railings, the top one certainly goes all the way along to the completely other end. So what we now need to do is start to draw these along with the down pipes going in. So I'm just going to draw the line across all the way. I'm going to come to the cab and we can delete that off afterwards. So just taking a line from that point, I'm just going to draw it all the way along. We'll delete, as I say, we'll delete off what we don't need on the other end as we work our way along. So the next down railing is 43 inches across. So that's 1092.2. So we can draw a line, project that line, and we come up to it to find the distance between the two railings. We say it was 1092.2 divided by 148. So that's the next one. I can turn this engine compartment off so we're not looking at that now. So the next one is 44 inches along. 1117.6. 1117.6 divided by 1.8. 45.5 to the next one. Is that going to be the center of the point? I'm not sure, if I'm honest. Let's draw it and see. So I'm going to do that, and we said this was 45.5. I'm going to go for 45. So that's 1, 1, 4, 3. Okay, the next one is 15 inches. That's 381 millimeters. Next one is 61. One 549.4. And 40.5. 102.7. It's really weird why they're all so random. 102.7. I just find it odd that they're not. Check that line there as well. Yeah, I find it odd that they're not the same spacing or similar spacing all the way along. I'm sure there's a reason. So 47 inches on the next one. 193.8. Helps if you do. That makes it better. Let's come back in. You see this one's a different colour because there's a gap here in the floor. So we'll need, I'm not going to need to draw these, I'm not going to do an extrusion, I'm going to use these to pipe. Next one, 15. So we need to go the same gap as we've got between these two. So that's 2.574. Lagged a little bit there. Okay. So the next one, 45.5. Yeah, 45.5, which is the third one along we did, so that one there. So 7.723. Next one, which is 44.5. I'm just going to go for 44, which is the same as this one here. 7.551. And then the last one, come down here, and the distance is 38 inches, which we haven't done so far, so it's 965.2. 965.2 divided by 1.8. There we go. So now I'm just going to trim this last piece off the end here because we don't need that. Okay, so let's have a look at the pictures. Are they rounded corners? No, they're not. They're pretty straight. Let's see if we've got an up close. You can see that they are circular other than the main upright ones. Let's go back to this full-on side picture. Okay, so I'm going to pattern now. Close that sketch, pattern the end one here that we've drawn across to here, 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 and here. Or am I going to pipe them first? Let's actually, we've got a line to draw across. We've got two lines to draw across. It's not. Let's make sure we don't snap to the midpoint because I'm pretty sure they're not at the midpoint. Actually, it might be if you think they're an inch round. So 19.5 obviously is almost half of there. Yeah, I'm going to go for the midpoint. Okay, so it's in two parts. It goes. First part goes to there, and the second one starts at the same height and goes to there. I'm going to horizontally constrain those two. Okay, so if we finish that sketch, what we can then do is not revolve, open that, or pipe. So if we want tangent plane, no, we can do. And I'm going to go for a body thickness of 0.7. Let's try 0.7. I think I'll get away with that. 0.6. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to reduce this down to 0.5. I've looked at some of the other models I've done. 0.5 is about what I can get away with, and it did produce okay. It's just really delicate. So I'm going to try with 0.5, see how we get on, and we can change if we need to. Okay, so let's get that sketch back up so that we can continue to use that. Next thing is another pipe, and I'm going to do across the middle. On that join. Okay, and pipe again. The problem with a lot of pipes is you can't like do multiple selections. You have to select each one as you go along. That's still 0.6. Let's actually change those. We said we're doing 0.5s. Okay, so that's all the pipes now done. As you can see, we've got the square rectangle and the pipes here. Now we've got to pattern that square one across because it is lined up on some of these positions. So if we look, so the same as this is the square one we've drawn. The next one is where the two are close together, and the two close together, and then the end one. So we can just pattern, rectangular pattern, and select the original rectangle that we've got here. That's on faces, we want bodies. Let's we can do it as bodies. We should have two bodies realistically here, yeah. And then we're going to select direction, tick on horizontal like that. We only need two of them. We need to have that lined up on top of these. That's probably going to be 4. So 28.4 for the first one. And I'm selecting the same body we just used there, same direction, just two of them, and we're going to try and get that midpoint. That's going to be about 55. So 2.55 there puts us roughly on the midpoint there. Then we're going to create a pattern using those two bodies. Direction, same sideways, only want two of them. So we know that this gap's the same, so that's why I'm able to just bring those two across and then line up okay there. And then do the same rectangular pattern, and we're going to pick the original one at the end, being horizontal, two of them. We need to bring that over on top of the last one. So 80.8 looks like it lines up okay there. Click on OK. Now if we turn off all the rest of the bits, we can combine everything except for the original body one, because that's going to have to be separate from all this lot. So we can do combine and then all of this lot, so 2 through to 7 can all become one piece. And then if we turn the chassis back on, the next thing we can do is use the construction plane, which is the mid-plane, plane 1, and then mirror those bodies across that mid-plane, have them on the other side. Clicking OK. So now we've got all of our handrails drawn on. Turn the construction plane back off, and then we can turn everything back on so we see how it all looks together. Okay, so you can see how that really does enclose that in quite nicely. Let's turn the sketch off of this so you can see through clearly. Close it all in quite nicely. They are, as I say, they are overscaled slightly, but you know, it's a compromise that's got to be made. And I actually think that looks quite good. Let's just check the height of these. So if we look through, we can see we've definitely got some sort of gaps between them. And they look, yeah, roughly level with the top of the engine compartment here, which is pretty much where we've got it. So we can see by that we've got our measurements pretty much spot on. So yeah, pretty happy with this. I think maybe this needs to be up towards the end a bit more. I think that's a little bit close, although there's a separate handrail there, which if we put that on, that'll be in that area. So no, I'm happy with what we've got there. We've created both sides, those handrails today. Hope you've enjoyed that and you're able to follow along and add those to your model. Thanks for watching.